Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again, I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies. And tonight, we are joined, combined with, I should say, our Heroes and Droid cast. So we have a conglomerate of both podcasts because we are doing, well, we're doing Werewolf by Night, which is a horror in the MCU with a werewolf and maybe some other surprises and maybe some gore and maybe it's in black and white. So it's going to be fun. This is going to be a blast. And I'm excited about doing this. A nice crossover. We do these from time to time. And it will be, there's many more in the future coming, as long as they actually do make the Blade movie. That's in question. But hey, we're hoping. But that aside, we are covering Werewolf by Night, which is playing on Disney Plus. And I am, as a Werewolf by Night fan, incredibly excited about this. But let me introduce the rest of the crew, starting off with the Slattman, Christopher Slattery. How you doing, sir?
Good. Can't wait to talk about this artsy-fartsy movie.
Artsy? Oh, yeah, it is, but in a much different way. All right. Also joining us is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore. How you doing, sir?
I am doing fine. I hope you are doing good.
Oh, it's late, guys. It's late.
Hey. I'm doing my impersonation of the most live person in this movie, the special presentation by Barnal. So
we're also being joined by my fellow Marvel monster fan, the one and only Chad Hunt, co-host of Decades of Horror, and of course a comic book artist in his own right, wearing a beautiful Werewolf by Night shirt. Thank you, sir. How are you doing?
I'm just checking my palms for hair.
Oh, well, that's...
Other than that, I'm doing great.
That's so wrong, sir. So
that's
wrong.
not the moon.
All right.
No,
of course we
it's
want.
not.
Oh, no.
I thought it was. Oh, dang it.
You guys.
I've exposed myself.
Making it all dirty and spicy. All right, let's welcome our special guest, the one and only Brian W. Smith from the New York City Horror Film Festival.
Hello.
How you doing, sir?
Doing well.
Are you a Werewolf by Night fan, or did you even know who that was?
I've heard of it. I'm a werewolf movie fan, but I've never read the comic. I had a passing knowledge of like Werewolf by Night and maybe Man Thing. Didn't know they were connected in any way. I would say having shots with Helen Mirren was on my bucket list. Now it's I want to have shots with Man Thing.
There you go. That's actually kind of cool. That's awesome. Thank you. All right. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to start off giving you our first impression of this 48-minute special. I believe it's 48 minutes. We're going to go with that, whether it's true or not. And because I think it's 58, but hey, who's counting? We're going to give you our first impressions that will be spoiler free, and then we're going to dive into a discussion. And Christopher, do you have any Easter eggs for this particular episode?
I do.
All right, we're going to have some Easter eggs and spoilers in the discussion, and then we'll wrap things up with our score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. And of course, we hope you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the podcast, and hit the like, subscribe, and share with a friend button, because we want to grow our audience, and only you can help us do that. So we hope you will. And of course, comments down below is a good thing too. All right, let's do the card and get things rolling, because I'm talking too much. Werewolf by Night 2022 on Disney Plus, available streaming on Disney Plus beginning October 7th, 2022, when everything horror came out that one day. Directed by Michael Giacchino. Did I say that right? Giacchino?
Mm-hmm.
Something close to that. Written by Heather Quinn and Peter Cameron. Werewolf by Night is created by Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas, Gene Thomas, and Michael Ploog. Michael Ploog. The cast includes Gael, Garcia, Barnal, Laura Donnelly, Harriet, Sansom Harris, Kirk R. Thatcher, or Krik. It's Kirk, but hey, it works. Eugenie, Bondurant, Leonardo Nam, and Daniel J. Well, who's laughing? Daniel J. Watts. The synopsis follows a lycanthrope superhero who fights evil using the abilities given to him by a curse brought on by his bloodline. Yeah, that'll work. It's not really 100% correct, but it'll work, right? Yeah.
They
We'll run
Took
with
a
it.
page out of the Lucasfilm
Yeah.
school of writing a synopsis right there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They could have
This
done it
show is
shorter.
about a werewolf.
Yep. Yep. Jack Russell's a werewolf. Thank you. That's all it says. All right, let's get into it. Brian W. Smith, sir, what was your first impression of Werewolf by Night?
First impression, I was impressed and entertained. I enjoyed the cinematography, the sound design. Actually, I was actually watching it with headphones on, and it's not always easy to sort of replicate that old timey sound. And I thought they did a pretty good job with it. I'm a big fan of Michael Giacchino's music, and he's also the director. And so yeah, there was some cues from the trailer that I really enjoyed that were actually in the show. So I was a fan of that. And I like the pace. I thought the pacing was fun. You don't necessarily get to know a lot of the characters, but you just sort of get shades of them as you go around. And the pacing just had that sort of comic book feel. It kind of felt like a segment in an anthology. It was just sort of standalone, and I'm fine with it as it is. But I don't know if they're planning any more. But I was entertained.
Yeah, I guess we should say that this is a special presentation. It's a one and done. We will get another one by the end of the year for the Guardians of the Galaxy. We're getting a holiday special.
Yeah.
That will actually lead into the third movie. So this will be a thing, and they seem to be high on this idea. So imagine that you're going to see. There's been rumors that a lot of things that have been announced as series are actually going to end up being one of these instead. I don't think it's a bad idea. All right, let's find out. Slattman, sir, what was your first impression of Werewolf by Night?
I was entertained the entire time. Ever since from the minor spoilers, the screams during the normal Marvel dun dun dun.
Yes,
dun,
yes,
dun,
wasn't that great?
That kind of hooked me in, and it was fun. It was fun. It had a lot of really creative shots, a lot of really great moments, and I think for how small of a scope it was, the sets were awesome.
The maze.
Yeah,
The maze.
and just the makeup and the creature design, and it's all positives except for one thing, and that it's just not long enough.
Wow, he wants more.
But I actually felt like it was it was kind of to its detriment. There were parts where I felt like it was rushed a lot, and they kind of glossed over some things that I felt like could have been important, or they didn't really give enough. They didn't really give enough backstory, or they didn't pay enough attention to certain things that it felt a little rushed, especially. I don't know. It felt rushed, but also it felt kind of drawn out at times. Like the first, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It felt very drawn out for the first half, and then the second half felt very rushed to me.
Another 15 minutes could have helped. I think I'm not opposed to that. Chad Hunter, Werewolf by Night fan, as the shirt says. And you probably are very familiar with Mike Ploog, who did the art for the original ones.
Man, one of my favorite artists of all time. Favorite artists. I've waited and waited and waited for this show to come on. I didn't have very high expectations because I really haven't been impressed with a lot of the Phase 4 Marvel stuff, especially the TV stuff. But when this popped up and there was the intro with the neon lights, just reminded me of tonight on CBS, a very special presentation. Yes. That kind of thing pops up. I was like, I was like all in from that moment on. And then the old classic, the whole way the whole thing looked, just like a classic Universal horror movie, was just, I loved every bit of it. It introduced characters that I've been waiting to see on screen for a long time, that I've been a big fan of, and monsters. I mean, monster hunters. I love this. I love this. I was waiting for it, and I came out of it with a big grin on my face. I just loved it. I just
loved it. I like that. Christopher G. Moore, who I don't know if you even like Werewolf by Night, the comic book series. You'll have to share that with you. But what did you think of Werewolf by Night, the Disney Plus special?
I think this is one of my favorite things that MCU's ever done.
Done. Wow.
Yeah, because it works in a it works in a type of style that a lot of times people fail at, trying to recreate the style of old horror films, and this does it so well. But also has the contemporary aspects of it as well, to where it's like I'd love to see Hammer horror stuff done like this, you know, and to have the guts doing it in black and white, to have the guts and doing it in that kind of style, which, you know, I think Chris was talking about, like parts of it being drawn out, but I think the drawn out parts feel like old Hammer horror type stuff, you know. It feels like old Dracula, old werewolf. It has those kind of like dramatic elements that you know, and then of course the more contemporary stuff is when the horror stuff, when they start fighting and stuff. But yeah, I think this seems like a grown up type story that you know, they definitely use the black and white to hide the amount of blood in this, because this definitely has a lot of violence. But if they showed the blood red throughout, I think this thing would have gotten a mature rating. But yeah, and I love all the characters. I mean, the just learning about how they crafted the story, just the amount of, I mean, yeah, parts of it are augmented by CGI, but there's parts where it's stuff that's done in camera. There, I mean, and even stuff that I thought was totally like CGI. Man-Thing is a practical creature, even though they augment it with CGI. Just their reliance on practical sets, you know, all that kind of stuff really shows Michael Giacchino's, like, his love for old horror films and being able to tell this story, and also just using that sort of like modern sensibility with things like the use of red. And just the dialogue, and, you know, a lot of these old monster films are all about also that sort of Tim Burton, Guillermo del Toro, where we have a love for the monsters, and this film, you know, revels in it. It has so many great visual elements. They're so beautiful. And yeah, I mean, I think everything else, I think a lot of the stuff is, and, you know, we review a lot of stuff at MCU and I love it all, but this is one of the things that didn't feel as cookie cutter. That it's not just shot in a Marvel way. It's shot in an old timey horror movie way. And I love this from beginning to end. This is one of my favorite things they've ever created. And I really hope that and by the way, Michael Giacchino actually composed the special presentation music as well. He's the one that came up with that idea. I hope they do more stuff like this. I'd love every Halloween come out with like a new horror story, you know, or just make more horror comic stories, you know, that don't have to really follow that normal Marvel storytelling, you know, do more of that. Because I think this shows they have the ability to do that, to do more of it, because there are a lot of us here would love to see that, you know? So yeah, I love this from beginning to end, especially as a filmmaker, especially noticing there's a few things I noticed that as a former projectionist at a movie theater.
The cigarette burn.
Yeah. So yeah, I love this.
Yeah, I loved it too. And I am a huge Jack Russell Werewolf by Night fan. Chad, you probably know that.
Yeah.
And this isn't the Jack Russell that I, you know, read, but I like this Jack Russell. I might like this Jack Russell a little bit more. Even I think that Gael Garcia Barnal really brought us a strong character, and I want to see more of them. And I love how this is a one and done. I like how it's self-contained. It's in the Marvel universe, and we get sly little references, but it's not dependent on it. And we've, you know, many of the other things, like, you know, we're doing She-Hulk, and, you know, She-Hulk is so married into the universe, right, with the Hulk and Abomination and all the, you know, references to the Accord, everything, right? It's all
Mhm.
just buried in it. But this one isn't, but yet it doesn't feel divorced from it either, which is really interesting. And I love the black and white aspect. It feels like Universal mixed with a little bit of Hammer, with some William Castle thrown in, with some Wizard of Oz garnish on the side. It really is
Mhm.
pretty well done. And I loved how when they did use color, I loved how they did it, both with the red, and then we'll talk about the rest of the color later. And of course, we get introduced to not one but three Marvel characters in the supernatural section of the universe, and we'll talk about that when we get into the spoilers and stuff. But oh my God, I'm in heaven. The characters I've been wanting to see are Werewolf by Night. I want to see Dracula, Tomb of Dracula specifically.
Yeah.
That would make the best series. And their version of the Frankenstein monster, of course, and many of the other characters. We need to get a good Ghost Rider. We need to get a good Ghost Rider in there. But there's so many others too. And Werewolf by Night is a good way to ease into it. And this is a good way to test the water without making too many waves if it doesn't work. But it's going to make a lot of waves if it does work, and I think we're seeing a lot of those waves. You were getting a lot of great response. They're very happy with it, and I think the director, oh my God, he nailed it. For somebody that's only directed a couple shorts, but he's at the same time he has a long history with cinema, because he's been doing music for cinema for quite some time, even TV. Well, somebody mentioned he did Lost, right?
Lost and Alias, yeah.
And Alias, which are some great TV themes. So amazing! This I am the happiest Marvel zombie you can imagine. I am thrilled. This was so much fun. And we have the danger of going long tonight because of how much I love this. I'm going to rattle off a lot, but before we get too far into it, we're going to dive into spoilers now, and we're going to start off with, you have 10?
Yeah.
10 out of many, I would imagine, but the top 10 Easter eggs.
Yeah, and a lot of these also will be just trivia about the characters and stuff that showed up. If you pay attention to the Marvel logo, they've actually added Moon Knight to that logo.
Yes.
Also, there's 4 scratches across it, not 3, so it's not Wolverine. It's actually the claws of a wolf man. The title card, of course, is similar to the old title cards you saw with movies like The Wolfman or King Kong, even with the Roman numerals at the bottom showing the year.
MMXX11, or rather.
Yeah. Of course, we get the Monster Hunter Ulysses Bloodstone, which we get the little visuals at the very beginning, who first appeared in 1975's Marvel Presents Bloodstone. Of course, we get Jack Russell, who first appeared in Marvel Spotlight of Werewolf by Night in 1972, which we got, episode, I think issue 23 is when Moon Knight showed up, which we talked about in our Moon Knight reviews. Jovan is played by Kirk Thatcher, and he actually started as an ILM creature designer. He actually, I think, some of the stuff for like Star Wars and stuff. He also was the boombox guy in Star Trek: The Voyage Home, if you remember that.
Oh my God!
Oh wow!
Which actually I think he replayed that character in an episode of, I think, Picard or something, or one of the Star Trek series. Of course, we get Elsa Bloodstone, which is actually they've done some more current stuff for sort of Monster Hunter in the comics, and she also teamed up with Midnight Suns. We get a nice little Psycho reference because there's a crossover with the stepmom and the skull when this nice little camera move, and sort of that's a reference to the ending of Psycho, where we get Norman Bates with the crossover with him and the skull. I mentioned this earlier as someone that actually worked back when projection booths were not digital. Back when they did 35 millimeter, I actually worked as a projectionist, and you always knew that, like back in the day when they actually would run multiple projections of a movie, they have to go from reel to reel. They would do a thing called what they call a cigarette burn, which is almost like a little circle that pops up in the right hand corner of the screen to know when it's about to change the reel. And actually, when I worked, we did like an old projection thing when I was at college. I had to switch the reels when that would happen. So anyway, so that's a nice little callback. There's like references to that. They make fun of that, I guess, in Fight Club, if you remember.
Oh yeah, we
talk about it in Fight Club. We get our, we get Man Thing. Who knew we'd get Man Thing? Which is Dr. Ted Salas. I couldn't read my own writing. And he tried to recreate the super soldier serum and in the Everglades, and he injected himself and then crashed into the swamp and fell into some dimensional rift and turned into this creature.
Dimensional rift and thing.
That if you have fear, he can like melt you with his acid hands. So, which we get to see that in this episode
quite a few times. Yes.
Of course, the final scene is they even play Over the Rainbow, and it goes from the black and white to color, which is, of course, is a reference to Wizard of Oz, which actually we also get a reference to that earlier, if you caught it, because when Jack Russell, when he touches the Bloodstone, he gets shocked by it in the same way the Wicked Witch is shocked when he touches the ruby slippers.
So wow, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so we get that either. Also, that scene where it's like one long shot where you see him transforming with the light shining off. That's in camera. They had actually had people moving in front of the light to recreate that. That was not a CGI shot.
Oh wow. Nice.
Isn't that awesome? We also get the nice little dolly zoom when he turns into the werewolf and it moves into him slowly. The Hitchcock zoom, and it's kind of nice that they kept the markings on his face.
Yeah,
which is almost like the Dia de los Muertos type thing for Day of the Dead. So anyway, those are a few of the Easter eggs and trivia things that I noticed during this episode.
Yeah, well, I want to start off. Of course, you mentioned the other two characters. We get Elsa Bloodstone and Man Thing, so beautifully realized. But Chad, are you a fan of Elsa Bloodstone? She's a recent character as the granddaughter or daughter?
Daughter, I believe. I don't know her as much as I knew Ulysses Bloodstone from the old Rampaging Hulk black and white magazine.
That's right. He's in the backup of that.
Yeah, and he did a couple of color, either Marvel Premiere or Marvel Preview comics as well. But I was a big fan of his. I did read a couple of issues of her when she was with the Midnight Suns. Loved that character. I just loved the whole thing about Ulysses Bloodstone, even though they made him look a little, I mean, he was more of a Doc Savage looking guy with long blonde Fabio hair.
He did.
And the Bloodstone was embedded into his chest right there. So
he had he had
the best. He had the aviator pants and the tall boots and everything like Doc Savage. And so I love the whole Bloodstone comic.
And Elsa was first introduced, she was blonde, but I think she's red haired now.
I think so, yeah.
And she has long, it's in a ponytail a lot of times.
Yeah.
So Laura Donnelly plays her, but she plays her much differently than she is in the comics. But and that it bothered me in the previews and reading about it, but in context of this show, it didn't bother me at all. I was really enjoyed her character. I enjoyed
some good one-liners too.
What was that?
It's some good one-liners.
Yes.
I want to see her like being in more action type stuff. She did such a great job being that sort of an action heroine.
Slattman, you want to say something?
Yeah, and her not being like a direct translation from the comics, but being an interpretation, it's something that Marvel's doing more and more of recently, trying to not be like direct page to film, translation, but more of an interpretation of the character and taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that story, a little bit of this, that to create what they're trying to create. And I think they did a really good job here of making a version that fits in with the MCU while also being kind of a fresh take, and also something that I think a lot of people could kind of relate to more than she's like in the comics.
Well, this is a good way to introduce her. She can become, they can make the character grow. Of course, she, especially with how it ends, right? She literally takes over for Ulysses, right? So it definitely opens a door for her to become a much larger character in the supernatural world with the Bloodstone in her possession. Of course, Jack Russell. We get all these characters with really no origin story, which is refreshing.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, and of course we get the Man Thing. I love the color version that we get at the end.
Oh my gosh!
And how surprisingly for this particular character, they made it so expressive. I was so surprised. Did you guys like that?
In the comics, he's not intelligent at all. He goes on. He's drawn in by people's emotions, and fear and emotions. He's empathic toward people's emotions, and so fear is the one that bothers him the most, and that's why the burning. When you fear, you burn at his touch. So, but here he's played as sort of. He still has a little bit of Ted Salas's personality.
But they call him Ted, right?
And they call him Ted. Yeah, and I found that really kind of a cool idea to follow through on. He's still Man Thing. He still can be scary, I think, as was witnessed in a couple of the scenes where he just grabs somebody's head and burns their head off and tosses their body aside. He can still be scary, but he can still be this kind of a character too. I think it was pretty cool. I thought. Yeah,
well, it helped that they have this Han Solo Chewbacca kind of relationship between Jack and him, because he grunts and moans, and Jack Russell can understand him. So you get some interaction without dialogue, and the expression on his face matched. That's what I loved.
The whole brow that moves, and when she called him Ted, and his eyebrows.
I know, wasn't that great?
What?
Like, how do you know?
That was awesome. Yeah.
And that's kind of bold storytelling, isn't it, Christopher? That they basically have two storylines going on, because we're following Jack Russell and we're following Elsa Bloodstone. Their storylines until they collide at the where they in the tomb, right? When they get locked in the tomb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I think again, this is like really great storytelling, because we don't have to have. I mean, we have a little bit of maybe exposition. I think a little bit when she shows up. But we really don't have to have on this background, and just through their conversations, we learn more about each other, Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know. I love these characters. I mean, you could sort of see there seemed to be like a little bit of chemistry between Jack Russell and Elsa. So,
but not necessarily romantic. I like
not
that.
Romantic. Just like hey, they could be work together. Team up on something.
Mm-hmm.
Midnight Suns, maybe.
Legion
Brian,
of Monsters, maybe.
Legion of Monsters, even better. Don't call it Midnight Suns, but yeah, Legion of Monsters. Brian, you mentioned the sound design and, of course, the music. Speak more to that.
Yeah, I mean, even as Chris mentioned, how a lot of people have done sort of the throwback to the 30s and film noir and that sort of thing. I definitely see it on the festival side, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily always work, but I feel like here it was just like I felt transported back to that era. It had a very even though it was contemporary sound and audio, it did have that. There was a hollowness to it, like you heard the acoustics in the castle or whatever.
Nice.
The way they were talking to each other. So I really appreciated that, and also I really liked the score. It was just active and exciting, and it matched the fight scenes pretty well. And it was, like I said, as a one-off, it was pretty entertaining. Like I'm good if this is it, but if they're going to make more in the genre and experiment with style and a shout out to Zoe White for camera work. I've been in front of her camera a couple of times as an extra on some Ono to Kel films, and she also went on to do Handmaid's Tale, and she's just like blowing up. So this is fantastic stuff to see. And again, Michael Giacchino's music, I'm a fan of his work, but I've never really focused on it as much as I have, with this. I think it works well with his directing, and he knew what he was doing. The whole team knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it feels like a passion project, right? It feels like he loves the character, he loves the genre, he loves the black and white tone and feel, the old Hammer. Well, not Hammer was in color, of course, but Universal and the Hammer films.
It's a nice October spooky season little treat. I liked it. Yeah. I could go for some more of these.
And it's dark enough to actually be, taken seriously as a horror piece without being, for being on Disney Plus, right? And yet kids, I think, would love it. I think many times stuff like this will downplay to kids, but this I think would play with
Well, I
most
think
kids.
this is one of those few times where they kind of meld the old filmmaking and new filmmaking together to make something that's like a hybrid that works so well together. You know, it's the peanut butter and chocolate Reese's peanut butter type deal. You know, me and my food analogy.
Yeah, you do you like that? Yeah.
Because I like food. But yeah, something about that just works really well together, and it doesn't distract. You know, because you can do those have the old sets and have like the scratches and stuff on it, and do all the old timey, and then you can have a Hitchcock zone where you can do all these, or even just like the long takes where they're fighting and stuff, you know, and showing blood on the screen, which you would never have seen in the old movies. But I think they work so well together that it creates this hybrid that's just as entertaining as both of those versions, but creates something new that's like, I really wish could you imagine if they did like a 70s Dracula, or if they did like somebody's
Tomb of Dracula?
Dracula. I mean, there's like so many other types of stories you can tell in different styles that could be really fun for them to do, you know, and looking back in the back catalog of stuff, you know.
Tomb of Dracula would be a really good way to introduce Blade to the MCU.
Well, they're not going to do that, but it would be.
I know.
All right, well, we're running out of time, so let's go ahead and dart into our score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. Brian W. Smith, start us off.
Oh wow! I'm gonna give it. I think I'll give it a 4.5. You know, it's
Solid.
it's a solid piece of filmmaking, and you know, it moves fast. They establish the story and get right to it, and I appreciated that. Favorite scene, I think maybe I'll say the fight scene in the hallway, the sort of passageway leading to the exit as the door is closing, and I'm thinking, is he gonna try to get out, or you know, what's happening there? And there's just so much happening, so much kinetic energy, and the music, of course, is just, I'm a big soundtrack fan, so it just, everything about it was just like, I might watch it again just to enjoy it again. But I like that whole sequence, you know.
Yeah, might watch it not only again, but I'm definitely want to watch it every year.
Yeah.
Yes. Slattman, your score 1 to 5 and your favorite scene.
I'm giving it a 4.75.
Nice.
Very, very good, very solid, entertaining. My only issue is that it feels like rushed at times, but at the same time, it feels very slow at other times, and I wish it had a little bit more even pacing. My favorite scene is I'm torn between two.
Or 10.
What?
Between 2 or 10.
I'm gonna go with this one because I think the other one is gonna be taken by Christopher G. Moore. It's when Man Thing drops down and grabs the stepmother,
yes.
and then just the conversation between Man Thing and Elsa Bloodstone right after. Huh? He went that way, and then he just kind of lumbers off.
Yeah,
that was it's a great scene. It's just so shocking too, and it was great stuff. Chad Hunt.
yes.
Chad Hunt by night. Well, what is your score and your favorite scene?
You know, it's a 5, right?
Oh yeah, baby.
You know it's a 5. I was I was worried about it, but I was very, very pleased with it. The introduction of Man Thing and Jack Russell and all those guys is just, I just thought it was great. And I agree with Slattman. It could have been a little bit longer, but I think they crammed a lot of good characterization into that little bit. It kind of just set up what these characters were about, and got the show on the road in the last 20 minutes or so of it. And the transformation scene for me was just, I just couldn't wait to see what Jack Russell, how true they stayed to the original comic Werewolf by Night, and they kept his pants on. Just like a comic. So that was just so cool, and I love the makeup that they kept on there, like Christopher brought up before, was just great. And this is going to be I'm going to watch this 5 or 8 more times before the year's over. I'm sure. I just love it. I loved it.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we got a real decent human-looking werewolf, right?
Yes,
without looking silly.
Without looking like a howling werewolf.
Right.
Everybody tries to copy the howling on a lot of werewolves.
Absolutely. All right, Christopher.
Chad, that scene was my other scene. Was my other favorite scene.
You stole mine, so I'm.
Which was your scene? The transformation scene?
Yeah.
Okay. Christopher, let us have it.
Yeah. By the way, Disney, please make this layer or parts of this in Disney World. So
oh my God, wouldn't that be awesome?
Can you imagine if if you had like a restaurant that was decorated with all the heads?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even talk about all the heads.
Well, you know, at the Marvel campus, they actually had the werewolf. They had Jack Russell, Werewolf by Night, showing up there howling and stuff. This gets a Roman numeral V out of V.
Nice.
I love this, and yeah, was it short? Yeah, but I'd rather have more than say, man, they should have cut more off of it. This was perfection. This is perfectly, everything worked so well. Production design, costuming, all the practical effects, everything. As for favorite scene, you guys have mentioned several of the scenes I was going to pick. But I'm going to say that I'll say the Hitchcock zoom when we zoom into the werewolf, when we see him in his final form, and just that beautiful, gorgeous design that we don't see enough of these days. You know, they tried to do that with the Wolfman movie a few years ago, but then they ended up making it parts of it more CGI. But yeah, I'll say that specific scene.
Excellent. We're literally out of time, so I'll make this quick. 5. I'm a sucker, and I'm an easy target. This is one of my favorite supernatural Marvel character, and they did it. And I've been wanting this for years. Yeah, longer. Since Blade came out back in 90 what. So yeah, my favorite scene though is when Jack Russell backs up into the bush. He's in the maze and backs up to the bush, and Man-Thing's hand comes out and grabs him.
Yeah.
But instead of getting scared, he turns around and they're buddies.
Yeah.
He's there to save Man-Thing. Oh my God, that's so great. I did not know that was going to happen. And that was, I smiled so big when that happened. It was just, I love that they're buddies and that that they've saved each other multiple times. We find out later. I like the ending too with the
solitaire.
The night after, or morning after, whatever. So I am so thrilled with this. I want more. Definitely going to be watching it again. This was great. Thank you, Marvel, for a wonderful Halloween surprise.
Keep making more.
Make more. All right, Christopher, Brian, Slattman, and Chad by Night. Thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
It was
agreed.
Spoopy filled.
Spoopy filled. All right, let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.